Morris Cho, I want to bring it to you first. It's pretty extraordinary, at least to me. You're the head of the new federal state since Miles has been detained. You've been doing a great job as our leader. But is it pretty unusual for the Chinese ambassador to be that aggressive? Hey, guys, if you want a trade war, we'll do it. You want any kind of war, we'll do it. We're ready to fight to the end. Your thoughts on that first?
Yes, that's very common, what they call that wolf warrior, right? That's Chinese Communist Party. But first of all, I would like to say it is very essential to differentiate CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, and the people, because the Chinese Communist Party is a totalitarian regime, which enslaved the Chinese people for over 70 years. The Chinese people, Lao Baixing, are peace-loving and hardworking people. They don't want war. They don't want trade war. They don't want war. So I think it's the CCP, they want war. When they say that statement, we will fight to the end, they are talking about sacrifice all the Lao Baixings, just like what we see in Ukraine. You know, the dictatorship used the war as their tool to keep them in power and keep their global influence globally. So that's the CCP talk, no doubt about it. But let's think about it. While we are still talking about a potential war, no, I think back in 2017, Miles and you already warned the U.S. and warned the world that the CCP is waging the war against the free nation, free country, against USA, right? This war included the fentanyl crisis. We have over 100,000 people die every year. That's a war, no doubt about it. What about the COVID-19? How many people died from COVID-19? And the CCP, used their misinformation and cover up all the informations, and they take all the PPEs to jeopardize the effort here in the U.S. So that's unrestricted warfare. What about the industry and also the technology espionage? They have a cyber attack, cyber affair happening in this country, and Huawei, TikTok, and Zoom. All those companies is working, all backed by the PLA, by the CCP. So they are already waged war on USA. So I think we have to be aware of that. And also their propaganda, right? The winter just brought up that back to years, they talk about the China is rising, the American is falling. No, it's not.
Hang on a second. Go back and describe to our audience, what do you mean by wolf warrior? The ambassador was very aggressive. Normally the ambassadors are trying to, be diplomatic and combat. That was not. That was up in your grill. What is the concept of wolf warrior? Explain it to our audience.
Okay, the wolf warrior, basically, they won't back down. They will use everything to threat the world, threat their people, threat the peace of the world. That's the wolf warrior. They won't back down. They won't negotiate because they don't care about their people's well-being. All they care is about their power, their, let's call that face. So they want to save their own face and just to sacrifice their own people and threaten the whole world. That's what defined as a wolf warrior.
Dr. Thayer, in the concept of the wolf warrior, Pete Hegseth, our friend and colleague, was that false bravado? I mean, we've talked about this a lot. Are we prepared to defend Taiwan? I'm saying forget whether we make a decision or not. Is the 7th Fleet prepared to defend it? Are we prepared to take the Chinese Communist Party on if a shooting war starts in East Asia? Sir, is Pete Hegseth right to say, hey, you want to get it on, we're ready to get it on, and the United States will prevail, sir?
Well, the U.S. military, of course, is a formidable force in any environment, in all environments. And so if the PRC were to make the decision to attack Taiwan, to attempt to conquer it, I think that they would incur very significant costs, which is, what Pete Hegseth is doing underscoring our deterrent capabilities, which are considerable. There's no doubt a lot of work has got to be done, Steve, in terms of our conventional posture and in terms of our nuclear posture as well. But if war were to come, of course, their political warfare is ongoing, as Forrest has stressed, right, that they've been waging war through many means for a very long time. If it were to go kinetic, of course, then U.S. capabilities in conjunction with allies like Japan are going to ensure that the PRC incurs a very significant cost in it. Trump administration is doing what it can do to turn this around. And you saw in the speech the shipbuilding enterprise, right? The emphasis on shipbuilding, emphasized on military power. All of those are very positive developments, which are only going to further strengthen our deterrent, and if deterrence fails, warfighting capabilities in the Indo-Pacific.
Dr. Thayer, where can people get your writings, your prolific, your knowledge of the Chinese Communist Party and the communist doctrine? You always continue to remind me, don't think of them in too much of a Western context. This is very much, it's very much a Confucian mentality, but it's also primarily Marxist, Leninist ideology. So where do people go to get all your writings?
Brad Thayer at X or Bradley Thayer at Getter and Truth. Thanks very much, Steve.
Thank you, Dr. Thayer. Revolutionary defeatism. Amazing. Forrest, you heard Pete Hegseth, Secretary of Defense, and you heard, you've explained this wolf warrior mentality. Do you believe that the Chinese Communist Party is prepared to go to a kinetic war, a conflict now, over Taiwan in the South China Sea or in the Straits of Taiwan, sir?
Okay, I think only few people, including Xi Jinping and a handful loyal person, will want this war. Let's look at it. There is a lot of pressure building up inside China. We talked about the economic pressure before. We know there was a military purge happened in China, which is initiated by Xi Jinping. There's nobody he can trust. So I don't think even on the higher level in the CCP, a lot of people don't want war. They want to keep themselves safe. They want to keep their offspring who are abroad to keep their asset and their children safe. So I think there is a lot of internal pressure. Those people are looking for regime change or leader change. And the most important thing I would like to say is the people. The people are waking up in China, because we talked about the marriage rate plummeted over like 21% last time. The Chinese people had enough. They will never trust the Chinese Communist Party and their lies and their propaganda. That's why even if they want to start war, the Chinese people will overthrow this government and they won't support this war. And also the internal people won't support Xi Jinping, the dictatorship. Think about the Ukraine. I think, yeah.
Hang on a second. They've had a huge purge. You've brought us up to speed on that over the last 6 months to a year. A huge purge of the military under Xi. You're saying, did you just say you believe if there's actually a shooting war, if we go kinetic, that Lao Baixing, that will be the movement that Lao Baixing will overthrow the regime, sir?
The Lao Baixing, including the internal people, which is the high-level people, because they know the system is not sustainable, because you saw even the high-level ranking people is thrown in prison and disappeared. So they had enough. In order to keep themselves and their family safe, they have to make the decision. They have to act rather than just follow Xi Jinping or the dictatorship to go to war to destroy everything they had.
Wow. We got about a minute. I want to go to the economic situation, because they present a series of numbers that are not great, but they're not awful. Of course, very smart people are saying those numbers are much, much worse than that. Your assessment of the real economic conditions in China today?
You can never trust anything coming out from CCP's mouth, right? All the numbers are fake. We talked about the youth unemployed rate is already over 40, 50. So the manufacturing is leaving China. We talked about Apple. We talked about the TSMC. The situation, the economic situation is very bad, including the real estate sector, which is in deep trouble. Back in 2 years ago, 3 years ago, it's even worse nowadays. So their economy is not sustainable, and they force people to stay in the labor force and to do very minimum wage work. But even that cannot support all the populations, all the young peoples in the country.
Forrest, where do people go to get the New Federal States TV show, podcast, all your content? Where do they go, sir?
Yeah, they can go to Getter, NFSC TV and NFSC Speaks, and also we have account NFSC TV and Speaks on X.
Also, you put out the daily news. I know it's up on Getter. It is spectacular. The level of detail and analysis. How do people get that daily? How do they get that daily news feed? There's always a half a dozen to a dozen. Really, I mean, and I look at every newspaper in the world. That is some of the best analysis I've seen. You get it up on Getter. How do people get to it?
Thank you so much. People just have to download the Gather. You can find daily news on the Gather app. You can find all those great news, all the truths from China, and all the news in the area.
It's amazing. Absolutely amazing. Forrest, thank you so much. Appreciate you coming on.
Thank you.
You made me feel better.